Now, welcome back again. If you have just joined us, we welcome you with the radio, of course, on Pan-African Morning, broadcasting live in the Republic of South Africa on Channel 500. We are fearless, zero favor and zero fiction. Moving on with our stories, we are, of course, going to be having on our green couch, as we have earlier mentioned, that we will be speaking to a gentleman with regards to, your marine and so on, and different events that are taking place. And, of course, creating an interest for you out there to say, how about you come and take part and maybe look into a career in that space? A lot of people that are not looking into it. Now let's look into the story. The Deputy President, of course, we are going to check on that story just quite very shortly. Moving straight into the first story. Deputy President William Ruto on Thursday postponed his Nyamira County tour to October the 15th after police stormed at the place where he was to lead the fundraising event in trucks dispersing people who had gathered ahead of the visit. The DP said that they have decided to postpone the event after consultations with the area MPs following the disruption by the police, which he termed as unnecessary. Ruto was to attend a similar funds to drive on Friday in Kisii County in the Kenyan sub-county. Now, police took, of course, on Calbrino High School ground on Thursday morning as they ordered away supporters who were at the venue ahead of the fundraising. A video surfacing online showed police officers asking members of the public to leave the venue, saying that the event was unauthorized. Another video, however, showed that armed police officers using tear gas canisters to disperse crowd. On Wednesday, the National Security Advisory Committee told leaders and politicians intending to hold public meetings to notify the office of commanding station of the area 3 days prior. The measures were announced by the head of Public Service, Joseph Kinyua, who chairs the NSAC. Kinyua, the directive draws similarly with the section of 5.2 of the Public Order Act that requires persons with the intention to convene public meetings to notify the regulations officer of such intent at least 3 days, but not more than 14 days before the proposed date of the public meeting on all processes. Now, the directive was, however, intercepted as the Ruto's applies as attempt to slow his county-wide campaign that toes as the fallout of the ruling Jubilee Party deepens.
Hey.
Now, moving on, of course, with our stories, we must remind our people that the race for the Ondo Government House is largely seen as the contested between the APC and the DP and the PDP, but the dead force of the ZLP may start in the string. Of course, we are going to look into that story a little bit later on once it gets on to us. Of course, on the 10th of October, Ondo State in the southwest of Nigeria will vote for the governor, the incumbent governor, Rotimi Winnie Akerodolu in the ruling All Progressive Congress, the APC, will square up against Eyitawo Jegede of the main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, and the 15 other candidates. Ondo, one of Nigeria's oil-rich states, has been governed by 4 different political parties since 1999. By winning the election, the APC will be the only party to have governed beyond 8 years in that very same state. Having lost in Edo State last month, the PDP, the APC is also hoping to step up its authorities on its contest ahead of the 2023 general elections. Now, these are very contested elections, of course, in Nigeria. We are going to keep a very close watch on it over the weekend as it happens. Now we are going to take a very, very quick break as we are being joined here at the studio by 2 very guests that I will give you. It's a surprise. I'm going to surprise you right now. And we were initially expecting other people. So I think I am surprised and you are going to be surprised. And everybody is getting a surprise this morning. Please do stay with us as we're coming back just after this break.
Make massive moves.
How can you say that?
That is what it is.
Your mother eloped with someone else.
I just think this is such a genius idea. I think it's amazing.
I can be happy.
It's inside you. It's inside of all of us.
It's about cooking smart that are nutritious and delicious.
President Trump acknowledging the coronavirus death toll could be significantly higher.
We don't want to do this.
There is nothing you can take.
Surviving roommates scared.
The heavyweights arrive.
Inside finds Pachulia, blocked by Jane.
This is the will of God.
Make massive moves with Starsat. Make massive moves.
Picture perfect, you don't need no filter.
Another one. Another one.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
This is just the beginning.
Make massive moves.
Get out! Get out of this place!
I love you. Do you love me?
Yes.
I like this. Someone stole from me yesterday.
It was not my fault now. Eh?
Leave me or I blast your head! No, don't shoot, sir, please! Please don't kill us. I'll give you anything you want.
Make massive moves with Starsat.
Hello. The fourth industrial technology era has forcefully changed how every profession has been working for its clients. The world has become smaller than what we used to think. Imagine the ease of talking to a person who is in Australia, China, or Germany while you are in South Africa, as if you're just next door. The ease that globalization and the fourth industrial technology have brought to humanity entail doing business anywhere in the world as long as you have the purpose and the means. It is our expertise as MB Chabangu Incorporated to advise clients immigrating to South Africa on various permits and on opportunities for travelers who intend to sojourn in South Africa for a longer period of time.
Ayé náà ti kéré ju èyí tí a rò lọ. Nítorí náà, ìmọ̀ wa ní ìsìlọ̀ àti òfin àgbáyé ṣe wá ní ọ́fíìsì àkókò lórí àwọn ìṣòwò ilé àti ìgbaniláyé láti gba ìwé ìrìnnà fún iṣẹ́ okòwò.
Ho MB Chabangu Incorporated re ba eletsi dinotari le basebedisi le di ofisi tsa rena kwa Pretoria, Johannesburg le Bloemfontein. MB Chabangu Incorporated e humanega ga bonolo go bareki ba rena. Go humana tlhagiso leseding ka botlalo re kgopela le re leletse mogala go 012 341 4187 goba le re ngwalele lengwalo tsebile go admin@chabangu.co.za. MB Chabangu Incorporated, mo mathata a humanago tharollo.
Tech Talk brought to you by Tamani Technologies and Systems. Tamani Technologies and Systems takes leadership in fourth industrial revolution. The whole world is facing a transformation. The revolution will be developed into the following stages: digitization, cyber security, Internet of Things, managed services, document management, and business applications. We provide business transformation and ICT solutions with presence in 13 African countries and 2 European countries. We are your leading partner in integrated platform providers, innovation leaders, standalone products, and innovation pace setters. Tamani Technologies and Systems, delivering value across continents.
This is not your ordinary cooking show.
The show where we do all things amazing, all things African.
Over here, we educate.
Avocado seed, it lowers cholesterol, controls blood sugar and blood pressure.
We heal.
Impepho is good for the immune system as well. This here cures sugar, the blood sugar, blood pressure.
It's all about organic conversation.
So in here you've got yourself a nice vitamin C, you've got garlic, which is your natural antibiotic.
Oh wow.
I can't wait.
Great one.
We entertain. And purely African food.
And this is how you finish it up. With a slice of lemon, you just dig in and you eat and you get healthy.
Welcome to the home kitchen.
Coming soon on Galaxy Universal Network, Channel 500 on StarSat.
I want you to eat healthy food because it's delicious.
Make massive moves.
Would you like another one?
I love it. I love this soup. This is amazing. The grits are so creamy. Oh,
I take pride in my grits.
so flavorful.
I think that looks wonderful.
Yeah.
It's so incredible.
Make massive moves with StarSat.
Welcome back again. If you have just joined us, we welcome you with the right here, of course, on Pan-African Morning, broadcasting live in the Republic of South Africa. I'm sure you're wondering, why am I smiling? Yeah, I don't know either. Because, as I said, I've been just bombed. You know, when you're sitting here and then all of a sudden veterans just rock into your studio, you just really have a very little to say. However, I will take you through to that just shortly, and I'm sure you'll be as surprised as I am right now, which is the beauty of running a, you know, when we call it an independent broadcaster, where everybody is welcome at any given time. This is the beauty of our Television Broadcasting Corporation. The Office of the Public Protector has called on Parliament to assist with government departments and organizations that do not cooperate or implement remedial actions. Senior management of the Public Protector appeared before the Parliament's Justice Committee to discuss its annual report for the last quarter of 2019-2020 and the first quarter of 2020-2021 financial year. The Public Protector, Bosisiwe Mkhwebane, said that one of the state organs do not cooperate with the Office of the National Prosecuting Authority. It is that time in the cycle where departments and entities that stand cap in hand before the Parliamentary Committee to ask for an increased budget. The Office of the Public Protector says that they need an additional 54 million rand to keep going. Mkhwebane says that there are investigations that were made more difficult to the lack rather due to the lack of cooperation from entities like the NPA. She has asked for Parliament to come in and intervene. Mkhwebane says that other departments also do not implement remedial action, while members of Parliament ask for those entities to be named. The chairperson of the committee, Bulelani Mangwanishe, cautioned for more careful approach. Now, we are coming right straight into the surprise that I was waiting to show you. Now, let's say in a count of 3. Ta-da! Yeah, because I'm sure you didn't expect me doing that.
Yeah,
just as I didn't expect you guys
indeed,
walking into my studio. Just if you didn't know, right now I'm joined by Ubaba Rex Sikholwa. Am I saying it right? Siakhwa. Ha? Okay. Ngibambile now. Baba Rex Siakhwa, and of course the SACP leader Ubaba Solomon Paile. Thank you so much for joining us. It is a very beautiful surprise that you are here at the studio. We are greatly honored by your presence. Of course, there's a whole lot of things that we need to discuss about. One of the reasons we are in this platform is to stimulate conversations, make people get involved into discussions that pertains themselves, the country that we're in, and of course, as Africa as a whole. It is about time where we wake Africans up and get them to be involved in, you know, constructive debates, into discussions that makes them understand what is happening outside there. Because there is a lot of news. There are a lot of publications that come out there with different types of news and whatsoever. But most importantly, today we are also going to be discussing about you know, the lecture of the maritime that we are going to be talking about that will take place tonight, right?
Yes,
and this is one of the things that we want to look into that space, because if you notice, the domination of the people in that space is obviously not much of the black people. But before we can get into the conversation, I want to welcome you both into our green couch and say good morning and thank you for a beautiful surprise. And tell me, what have I done to deserve this? I will start with Bob Mapaila first.
No,
what have I done to deserve this? Early morning, that's all.
No, thank you very much, Sanda. You are most welcome. I think you must deserve it. You are a brilliant presenter, so we like to be here to share some ideas about our continent.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Say, what have I done?
Yes, well, thank you very much, Sisanda. We really feel very honored ourselves to be invited to be with you today. You're a very brilliant presenter, but I know even more than that.
Thank you.
Since time before even talk about the presenting, but also to thank you for coming up with this brilliant idea of the Galaxy Universal Network. It's very important that we have these kind of platforms, not just to promote ourselves, but looking at the range you cover, the continent and even beyond. And because it's also online, unlike the old traditional media,
yes,
you actually reach all over,
yes,
even beyond the diaspora.
Yes.
So we are very grateful for you to give us this platform to speak about this inaugural Maritime Heritage Lecture and Colloquium.
Yes.
Which we are very blessed with the kind of speakers who are coming tonight. We've got, for instance, the keynote address to be given by our DG for Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Ubabu Umkize, Kabazela, Uvusmuzi. And then we have the chairperson of the Maritime Heritage Institute, Commander Tsietsi Mokhele.
Yes.
One day he also join us here. He has a depth of knowledge about maritime. He's a naval commander himself.
Yes.
He was one of those young people who were sent to the USSR then by O.R. Tambo to strengthen the naval unit of Mkhonto we Sizwe.
Oh, wow.
There are, a whole lot of others. And we have also a very brilliant scholar, ambassador, Dr. Nomvuyo Nokwe, who is the first African woman to become the Secretary General of the Indian Ocean Rim Association.
Wow.
Very important one. And of course, Dr. Mokhele we have mentioned. We also have the acting CEO of the National Heritage Council,
yes,
Louisa Mabi. And then, of course, and the Women in Maritime Association in Africa, Julia Ramitsana, will also be there. So it's a very important array of speakers.
Yes.
Not forgetting we've got our ambassador in Uganda, Professor Major General Soli Mullo, who's also the president of the South African Military History Commission.
Wow.
And then, of course, the other one is Comrade Thapedi Masanabo, who's the leader, director, and a curator of the Delville Wood Memorial in France, which is a South African-owned entity that was established after the First World War. And he captures the spirit of the Mendi there. So we're very delighted to have this kind of lecture tonight, which will be a launch of a monthly, quarterly series of those.
Yes.
To look into this maritime heritage, specifically the heritage part.
Yes.
Because we also want to debunk the myth that maritime we started knowing maritime with the arrival of white people here.
Which is untrue.
It's very much untrue.
Yeah.
The opposite is true. They came to know maritime from us. The first boats and ships, those were built by Africans. The designs from places like Egypt, Ethiopia, even Southern Africa. If you don't know a thing, you would not have a name or a word for it. Sinawa makama fana nabo mkumbi, ingalawe, which tells you that we knew about things.
For
and
sure.
Just this myth that we know with the Dakis, when you talk maritime or anything to do with water, they think about Mamlambo.
Yes, and they say we can't swim.
And they say when you see the water, you run away instead of So all of those will be covered tonight.
Oh so probably is this project or this event, is it going to be online or it's a physical?
It's online, Sisanda. So I'll just get the officers who are talking to send us the the link to that. Yeah.
Oh, so we could be able to broadcast it as well.
Oh, that will be so nice. Yes. Oh, that will be lovely.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. As they say, I kiss the ground on which you walk. With that statement, yes.
No, but it is a space where people need to get to see and get to understand, because the reason why maybe Africa is sitting where we're sitting right now, it's because of prevention of information that is not being given to us, because they understand how smart we are. Yes. And the moment we get our hands in certain pieces of information, this whole world will change. Indeed, so we must be in a position to, if we are in spaces like this and opening up broadcasters where we can actually now disseminate information to as many people as possible, especially to 36 million people in the African continent. That's the biggest we can do. So now getting into the conversation, I'm very biased to Africa, and I'm not apologetic about it. And to me, being an African is the first thing that happened to me, even before being a human being, for that matter. So when we look into this maritime thing, I'll actually maybe politicalize it and maybe hand the question over to Mr. Mapaila to say that are we as Africa in charge enough? And what is it that has, changed the tone of people believing that white people now are the ones that came up with this, introduced us into maritime? What happened? Because I strongly believe that we didn't have shops where we were buying things. We lived out of nature, from the seas, from the bushes. We were surviving from that. What has happened? Are we even doing enough to claim back what belongs to us?
Well, I think firstly is to say the African maritime has been colonized and remains colonized, and we have to free it. And it's a disgrace that in many countries, including in South Africa, you have over 4,000 kilometers of coastline, and the inland lives in poverty. When our oceans and the seas have everything that we need, that is on land. So we have to reclaim that. But also it's untrue, like Comrade Drax has indicated, we have always had our own markets, our own shops. We had trade routes dating back thousands of years before colonization by European, so-called European powers.
Yes.
So that part of history must be retold. I know it must be part of the curriculum to assert appropriate independence of African countries and their thinking. And by the way, we even, as you know, started even the concept of writing communication through hieroglyphics as established by the Egyptians. So this myth, in fact, if you go to Timbuktu in Mali, where we have archived some of the African continent's best writing and history on civilization. So debunks this myth that Africans were not independent.
Yes.
We were colonized through the barrel of the gun. The only thing that the Europeans managed to achieve was a superior gunpowder that they used then to overpower the African continent.
Yes.
And ever since, it has been a massive centuries of struggle.
Yes.
But we are free now in many parts of the continent with democracy and are able to rule ourselves. What we need to do is to free ourselves from the colonial mentality and oppression and use the platform of freedom to entrench independence of our people and self-sufficiency.
Yes.
And we have everything to be self-sufficient. There's no doubt about it. And I'm very pleased that Comrade Drax and others are involved in this maritime industry because we have been fighting for this, for the opening up of this industry for years. If you go to European countries and see a small European country with a little access to the sea, maybe 100-kilometer access to the sea, their life depends on it.
On it,
So there's no way in which we can have poverty and have so much resources in our oceans and the seas and are not utilizing them properly as Africans. So we need to assert control of those resources and use them for our development.
Yes. So where do we start from what Mr. Mapaile is saying just now to say that we need to take control? But where do we start? Because, you know, so if we do not have the form of education that starts from the beginning and creates interest to our young people to have interest in those type of industries, it is definitely going to be difficult to try and convince a generation. It might take us 100 years before we get there. Where do we start?
Before I come to that, let me just do a rejoinder to what the Comrade Soldier said here, that we need to reinstate our control over things maritime. By the way, maritime also goes beyond the oceans and the seas. It also includes what they call inland waterways, your rivers and dams and lakes. You know, some of the lakes in Africa, in Europe, they look like the ocean. I mean, Victoria. I'm so sorry we still call it Victoria Lake Victoria. You know, yeah. It moves from here to Uganda, you know. So we need to take control of those. But just coming home to South Africa, one of the things that it's a disgrace, and I'm happy organizations like South African Maritime Safety Authority, especially during the time of our current chairperson, Commander Mkhele, started a process of making sure that the ships get flagged here. You know, when you have ships flagged elsewhere, you don't know how much you lose. If you've got a ship flagged in South Africa, carrying a South African flag, it forces that everything that ship comes to do here, the South Africans get very much involved from the job creation point of view, you know, in terms of repairing and servicing the ship and the food and your chefs and, you know. So that's very important. But going back to your question about where do we start, I'm glad to say that last year we were launching the Maritime Heritage Conference.
Yes.
And part of the very central point of it was to involve the students, the school kids, you know, from grade 8 up, you know, where we organized what we call master classes. And also skills development. Just at you know, it was a 2-day conference.
Yes.
But it was very important. We had experts, you know, in terms of piloting ships, of rigging, of doing this, to demonstrate these things to students. And last year we were very fortunate, and bless his name, Comrade, the MEC of Education here, Panyaza, the Sufi, allowed the department to be in partnership with the Maritime Heritage Institute. And we had over 1,500 students who came there to learn about this. And then, of course, you know, the National Heritage Council and SARA, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture itself, and others, you know, came to the party. So you will see then the marriage between different departments in terms of government, education, sports, arts and culture, because maritime cuts across those. So where do we start? That's where I think we have started, and I think it can only, you know, grow from there.
No, we also hope that probably by publicizing this tonight's heritage, you know, lecture would actually assist a lot of people into maybe getting interest and stuff like that. And if there's a way now in the next one without COVID-19, one could participate physically in that space. Now maybe moving just a little out, even though we're still going to come back just at the end of, you know, towards the end of our conversation, moving out into maybe the politics politics of the country that we currently at. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, we covered a protest by COSATU, which was actually on the 7th. I think it's the day before yesterday, if I'm correct. The protest by COSATU, that they were saying that, you know, also they are not even going to be now giving support to the African National Congress, and due to all the crises that are happening around, you know, for the likes of your PPE scandals, all like everything else that is part of it, and also a manner in which the issues are being dealt with. And at the very same time, we have got SAFTU also saying the same thing, that, you know, they are not going to be entertaining it. And now we are here, Mr. Mapela, let's just get it from the horse's mouth. Where are you, or maybe the SACP, standing with regards to everything that is happening here? Your support for the African National Congress, is it still there? Do you still see the future for our country in the midst of everything else that is happening at this stage?
Firstly, Susanna, let's say that we are also part and parcel of the African National Congress. We are in alliance. What the protest was about was to address corruption, both in the public sector and in the private sector, and particularly corruption that arose as a consequence of our response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
But we must also praise the manner in which government in South Africa intervened in the fight against COVID-19 to save lives and to protect the people. The corrupt elements do not represent government nor the ANC. That's why a week before we have started seeing some high-profile arrests of people who have looted the state purse.
Yes.
But also the march was also against the government reneging on a pay progression that they've signed with the workers for 3 years. They've already paid it for 1 year. When they were supposed to continue paying, they then say this was not done properly. So that's what the workers were fighting. And they also used the question of COVID-19 to stop paying that money. And we rejected that on the basis that it was kind of a blackmail to the workers.
Yes.
Because they say there's no money, but on the one hand, government in its stimulus package in the fight against COVID-19, as well as to stimulate the economy, which had gone down because of lack of production as factories had closed, they then guaranteed 200 billion to the financial sector, the banks, and a few banks, commercial banks, to grant this money to SMME or companies that are making a revenue of less than 300 million rands a year. And the banks, as we know, by September, mid-September, they'd only spent about 18 billion of the 200 billion. So they didn't use the money.
Yes.
But what we call development finance institutions, which are public banks, did not have access to this money. And we've been making this call to stop what we characterize as a drift towards neoliberal capitalist economic system, which has practically failed the continent as a whole. I mean, many African countries who gained independence from colonial rule for over 50 years are still having poverty today. What's the reason for poverty in a democratic environment, in very rich countries on the continent? It's precisely because of the source of the oppression, which is the capitalist system.
Yes.
So in our case here, the tensions that are there will certainly be resolved between us and the ANC as an independent organization. We have not reached the point yet, even COSATU has not reached the point yet where they will pronounce who they will support for in the coming elections. We do know SAFTU is not a member of the alliance. As you know, its general secretary used to belong to COSATU. So they are an independent organization, so they can pronounce against the ANC. But the march was for all workers in the country, because we have said unity of workers is important, because the capitalist system has unilaterally restructured the workplace on its own, casualized the workers and the workplace, labor brokered the workplace, imposes poor pay in the workplace across unions across federations. So that is why this call led by COSATU to unite all workers was very important, and we supported that.
You just spoke quite very much against the capitalist system. In the very same time, we are living in the country that is supposedly a communist, it's using communism. Does that really exist, or is just a term that we use to sound better?
No. This country, it's not even using communism. It's a capitalist country, South Africa. And South Africa even uses what we call the worst form of capitalism, which is the free market system. The free market system allows individual traders or industries to even set their price. There's no price limit. For instance, you can go to 3 different shops and buy a bottle of water at different prices within a radius of a kilometer because of the so-called free market system. So it's the worst form of capitalism, very brutal and exploitative. That is why, despite that this country is the most industrialized country on the African continent, South Africa has a GDP that is, this province where we are in, has GDP that is bigger than many countries on the continent. You have half the population not affording food. Precisely because the capitalist system produces not for the people, but for profit. If it was socialist system, we will certainly have set the objective of production, which is to meet basic needs of the people, not merely to make a profit and enrich a few.
No. Yeah. There is a statement here that I always like to say, Africa doesn't need the world needs Africa. I'm not sure if you gents would agree with me to say, with everything that Africa has, just to mention few, we've got petroleum and natural gas, we've got cotton, we've got iron ore, we've got gold, we've got diamonds, we've got coffee, we've got tea, we've got our livestock, we have got I can't really even finish, calculating and mentioning all the resources that are in this country. But at the very same time, we are poor. We are probably one of the poorest continents in the world. Why is it with so much at our hands? I mean, we're talking right now about the maritime space. That on its own, it's a big industry, but a lot of us as Africans, we are not even involved in those spaces. We go to school and we are being taught locust and trees and the rest of other things, but nothing is being done to develop ourselves. What is it that make us so poor? Because I think, in my view, everything is just in the head that we are not being equipped to take the stand. But really, are we that dumb that we don't see all this?
If, if I'm to jump in there, first of all education is very important. It is very important for us to know about the locusts and the trees and the air and everything, because that makes us, What is problematic is, if you remember, apartheid was very clear. You will not work here. You will not know this. You will not school here. It was very straightforward. Dare you do that, you will be breaking the law. You'll be in jail. There were Group Areas Act, the education was, the jobs and everything. Now that's yesterday, that's 1948. We're talking 1652, which is a trademark of colonialist, capitalist, and imperialist set up. You first arrive in a place, take the land, kill the leadership, if possible, kill these people, If you are not able to wipe them out, change the laws, and change the mode of production, the way, production is made. And then also Comrade Timapaila would agree with me here, change the relations of production.
Yeah, fundamental.
So, for as long as the relations of production are the way he explained, that the means of production, the soil, the earth, the land, what's on top and what is underneath, the political superstructure says that will be owned privately. And then Nina, who owned this land, you have only one thing you can sell. Not at your own price, but at the price
that we give.
Me, as the owner of this land, determines. If you don't change the relations of production, you can shout the freedom and democracy and human rights as much as you want until you become blue in the face. It won't change.
Yeah.
So I thought, let me just jump in here. And that also comes when it comes to matters of maritime.
Of course, definitely.
You know,
Are we in the right track, though, to even emphasize or put in any of those changes?
Well, we have stagnated. And that's a worry. We've got enough policies that are pointing to the right directions. But you know, the lack of control of our policy space becomes extremely problematic.
Yes.
You are raising an important point whether Africa can be free of the world. Africa should be independent but interlinked with the world. But what we have seen African governments doing, influenced by imperialist countries, those that have colonized our countries, France, in particular on the continent, as you know, controls over about 28 countries, and they still have direct relations and control from France. Until we cut that umbilical cord, there won't be independence of many major African countries, because the Francophone countries, it's almost half or just above half of the African continent. So you need the absolute de-link and independence, not continuous control from France, like what we have seen now on the continent, where, for instance, if a political leader rises in an African country and raises a view against France, or takes office and raises a view against France, he gets removed from office by the military, because France has got military in almost all these Francophone countries. They remove you, it's a coup, then the AU condemns it, but nothing is really done. Later on, civilian transfer, and a former general comes back, the same one that made the coup on behalf of France, comes back as a civilian, takes over leadership, keeps colonial links. So that's one fundamental issue. The second one is that international institutions, we need to build our own international institutions and interdependence to our own African institutions. The ones that we have not been too helpful to the continent.
No.
The IMF, the World Bank, the OECD groupings based in Paris have been focusing on drifting the African continent towards the capitalist mode of production. And that is where we do not own resources, because if you enter, let's say in the South African context, we are practicing a free market system. There's a discovery of gas, which we just did massive gas in the outside in the Indian rim of our ocean. When you are to explore and utilize that gas, majority of the companies with enough resources and experience in that field are from outside the country. They just bring in the money. The local companies can't compete, then they take over. So you need policies that can blunt that, allow investment where necessary, but let us keep the control and the absolute distribution of the resources. So not only do we want what we call production relations, which is changing the ownership patterns, we also want the distribution patterns to be controlled by us, so that we don't produce resources instead of feeding our people, in the case of food, we send to Europe. Then half your population lives in poverty, but you produce enough to feed everyone in the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe if we can look into who are the people that needs to make these changes, because if you're looking at a country like Botswana, they put in rules and regulations that for you to get into this specific industry, you must be from Botswana, you must be a Botswana citizen, and they put in high, percentage on the gold and the mining that is happening here. Meanwhile, in this country, for an example, people are just doing as they please.
But that's after 50 years of independence. They started this year to do what we are talking about.
Yes. So why can we not try, at least move towards that direction?
Yeah. The big issue is that it's the politicians. But politicians, in a way, are not good for countries. Okay. We need revolutionaries in political positions. Because I can be a politician but not a revolutionary. So I wouldn't care about the concept of transformation. That is why countries led by liberation movements should set the example. South Africa being one of those, a heroic and the oldest liberation movement on the continent. They should set the example that when we are in power, we don't just fill our pockets, but we transform society in order for the resources to benefit the people as a whole.
Yes.
And we can contribute to revolutionary spirit on the African continent as a whole. I mean, the point that you are raising about Botswana, I have seen these regulations. They include, some of them are only starting now in August, in September. They have not been there for the past 50 years when they were independent, so-called. So these are part of the problems that those in political offices must understand that the pace of transformation should be measured by the hindmost in society, by the least developed in society. They must not feel comfortable because of the offices where they come from and the privileges that they have. They must look at the level of underdevelopment as the basis to plan development, which is basically what European countries did. But Europe also built their countries on the labor and of slavery of African people, because imperialism started with the enslavement, particularly of the African masses.
Yes, on a layman's term, maybe you just recently, mentioned two differences. You said that you don't have to lead the country as a politician, but as a revolutionist that is in political space. Maybe someone may not get to understand the meaning of that. Maybe this could also assist us when people are trying to, go to a ballot box to vote, to say, am I voting for a politician or I'm voting for a revolutionist? Give us a little bit of a clarity in there on what do you mean by that?
Well, politicians are those that necessarily lead political parties.
Yes.
And they may represent even the worst kind of systems, reactionary systems that do not transform or change deeply people's life. They can be sectoral and so forth.
Yes.
Revolutionary movement seeks to change the way things are done. For instance, in the case of a true revolution on the continent, in fact, the truest point of freedom is to tackle the concept of production, because human beings live and eat out of production. So the control of production, it's important. That's why what Comrade Drax was talking about as production relations, basically it means ownership of the means of production, the instruments of production by the people. Now you have political parties and politicians that comes into office, preside over office with the means of production owned by colonialists, so they are a facade of the office of their respective countries. They have the flag, the national anthem, but they can't do anything. In fact, there was a former president of Senegal who went to meet with Hu Jintao, was a president of China, at one of the Davos forums. He made a very important statement after that meeting, because he said he had many meetings there, but the most important meeting he had was with the Chinese leader, because in their discussion, the Chinese leader said, what can we do and when can we start? And he was shocked that a leader of another country on investment could talk like that, because he said, in the other meetings, when you get so-called Western aid or Western investment, it takes 6 years to process. And by that time, you have been elected in office for 5 years.
Your
plans are not, you cannot put your plans in shape.
Yeah.
So there's no conception of radical change of the system of production, but fundamentally the ownership of that particular system by the people. So the government represents the ownership of the people, not just the political jackets of individuals that become career politicians, but they have no conception of how to change people's life, how to transform production relations in their respective countries. It's very few countries like Cuba, for instance, that have asserted that role. On the African continent, those that tried were dealt with by Western forces, whereas the Algerian Revolution, very profound revolution, but how the Europeans went into that revolution to destroy it was something else. Few others, of course, and South Africa remains the best prospects. But that is why one of the major fights now is the fight against neoliberal trajectory of our economic development, as well as the imposition of austerity measures, wherein, for instance, fundamental sections of society, there are budget cuts. But there's budget cuts and fiscal consolidation on the one hand, basically to please the IMF and the World Bank, when actually the people that should benefit from that live in poverty.
No, for sure. Well put in there. Now, when we move back just before we close the show, what is it that this Heritage Lecture is now looking into achieving? If somebody will have to tune in onto Galaxy and watch that program tonight, what is the message that it is mainly aimed at being sent through?
Thank you very much, Sisanda, and thank you very much for agreeing for offering actually to broadcast this tonight, starting at 6 o'clock. The theme of the conference the conference being the second conference, but this taking the shape of a lecture and colloquia, is our shipping heritage, the making and sustaining of nations. Now that's very profound, in that we want to look at the impact and the role of shipping within the broader maritime space.
Yes.
Both as a tool for emancipation or liberation and as a tool of oppression.
Yes.
I don't have to take you to a classroom to say but they came through ships. Yes. So then the speakers will be addressing quite a number of sub-themes related to that. So I would very much encourage your viewership and listenership to tune in to Galaxy tonight at 6 p.m. To gain quite a lot from this. And then going forward, we'll be having these lectures, that people can gain from.
No, it's quite also very much interesting to also get to have these lectures that are coming in from now and then. But what is most important, I think, it's just maybe for us to expand it to the less privileged in terms of getting this type of information. Because as I said earlier on, that on top of that, I'm a village girl. I'm always, interested in finding out how do these types of programs assist in, especially people in the rural areas, people that are, for an example, as I said, I'm from a village. My home is literally 15 minutes away from the beach. But what is it that I've ever benefited from that beach? Totally nothing, really. So these are some of the things that are really maybe in closing to say, what is it that these type of programs could add in terms of value in assisting the less privileged?
Exactly. Beyond this lectures, the Maritime Heritage Institute has other programs that we are mobilizing the resources for to do exactly what you talk about. For instance, one of the things that we don't look at seriously is fish farming. Fish farming you can do not only around the oceans and the rivers, but even your swimming pool. You can turn it into a fish farm, you know.
Really?
Yes, it's just like people are chicken farming and stuff like that, you know. And fish provides the best protein, you know, to humanity. It helps obliterate poverty.
So when you turn
this is just one of the small things.
A fish farming, you no longer swim in there, do you?
No, I mean, you've got water there that you always put poison into it, so that it must look blue. And you get nothing from it. You don't even swim every day there.
Okay.
You can create another space. It doesn't have to be that big. In your own yard, and even gardening, you know, you can do that. There are quite a number of things that watch this space. As we said, we'll be also working with companies and government departments. Go to schools right from the beginning to teach people about maritime and the heritage part of it.
Unfortunately, we have reached to the end of our morning broadcasting. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have the both of you right here on our Galaxy Universal studios. Please know that you are always almost welcome. Maybe next time with less surprises, so that some of us can prepare ourselves to engage Africans into a great conversation.
We must thank you. We must thank you really. Once more. This is a great platform, and I think the more people know about it, the better.
No, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
No, thanks a lot. Of course, before we just close, the SA tourism industry records a loss of billions due to travel restrictions. And disgruntled ANC Free State members storm in Luthuli House, and the EFF accuses the High Court for applying legal principles incorrectly. And Mozambique discovered fake various test results sold at the border. These are the stories that we had for you this morning. We hope that you have had a beautiful 3 hours of your time, which was very, very much informative. And let us continue to have these conversations around Africa. How can we take our beautiful African continent to another level? The responsibility is in your hand and my hand as well. So let's work together to do that. I want to thank all our guests, of course, for being here with us. We would like to thank you, our beautiful viewer at home, for being part of this program. We can't do it without you, of course. We want to appreciate your continuous support. As well, I would like to thank my crew for taking this program to the next level. And the kamalami gengi ngusisanda nomusa kwaqabe kuthiwa intombazane yaphansi kwamhlaba yalingana ufule ngophuza ngiphuza ukelekele kanti inkomo zakithi ngashiya zidla phansi emahlathini asekubandeni kanti ke zona ziphuze ebhudlweni umfulo ohamba ngeslow motion kwesikwazi bisigodi kula ngibuya khona ke emathongeni kwesenkosi umabhudi kwangwanase ngathola amabomba ami ngwabhekisa egoli kwandonga ziyaduma kwanyama kayipheli kuphela amazinga endoda. And this is where we are, of course, broadcasting live, and this is Pan African Morning. Until next time, Africa, it's a goodbye from me. Thank you.